Hello. Hi, friends. Welcome. Oh my goodness, we are in for such a treat. This is arguably one of the highlights of my career. I'm so excited to connect with you all and allow everyone an opportunity to soak up some incredible genius from our CEO of Modere, Asma Ishaq. Asma, I'm so happy that you're with us today. My friends, right now, you want to get in your chats and make sure that everybody's here. Share it with your leaders, and let's all come together. Let's have a round table. Let's have a really good conversation around collagen, because we know that we're seeing it all over the place now, right? And we know, Asma, that they are not all created equally. And this is going to be such a wonderful experience for us to really get some core beliefs, some foundation on collagen, and particularly why our collagen is globally recognized and as wildly results producing as it is. So without further ado, my friends, Asma Ishaq is in the house. She, again, is the CEO of Modere. She's also chairperson of Collagen Stewardship Alliance. She's a committee member of the Council of Responsible Nutrition, and she was recently awarded Nutri Champion in 2020. My friends, we all are so proud of this next one. You've seen that she helped drive Modere to #1 fastest growing women-led companies. We are so proud. And also Newsweek's 2020 list of 100 most loved workplaces. And I think we can all tell in the comments that we agree with that, Asma. We are so proud to work with you. And I would love for you to get in here, introduce yourself, and maybe paint a little picture of our vision with Modere and where we're heading.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. I love all the comments I'm seeing here too. Hi, everyone. Jen, it's just an honor to be on this with you. So hands down to you for your leadership and all of your success. I've been watching very carefully and very closely, at your advancement and how quickly you rose and how many people you inspire as well. So it's really my honor to be on this call. And all of you are just amazing. I'm so excited to be able to share a little bit of knowledge about what we're doing, whether it's collagen, whether it's our new platforms that we're launching, SRC, whatever it is that's on your mind. And I will tell you that I think I have, especially over the last few days, I have not been able to sleep. For some reason, in the middle of the night, I get up and I'm just like, all these things are going through my mind, because this SRC that we're coming up to, our big convention that's coming up in a couple of weeks, literally 2 weeks from Monday, or 2 weeks from now, we are so excited to be launching probably the biggest technology product, consumer product that we have actually ever launched before. So our vision is not only what we've been doing, but I'm one of these people who lives in the future, not the past. So I love getting recognition, but recognition is about what we've done, not about what we will be doing. So it sets the stage, a little bit of foundation for, of course, like what makes us so great and how we achieved it and how we've achieved so much success due to all of your hard work and your dedication. But really, we're building this company for the next 50 years, not the next, even 5 months or 5 years or anything like that. And what we're doing and what we have been working on for years now is really identifying what will advance our model to its next phase. And not only that, but we're working on innovation on products as well that will bring hero concepts, emerging categories that will lead, just like we've done with collagen as well. And so I'm really proud of where we are. And I think that there's so much anticipation around these launches that we're going to have at SRC, that it will really not just, our big theme for 2022 is accelerate, but that's exactly what we're doing. No matter where you look in our company, who you look at, what you're thinking, it's all about accelerating our growth even further than we have. So we've been identified as having a multi-billion-dollar value or potential, and we're already tracking on that, but we have so much more ahead. That's what I'm sometimes I struggle to be able to articulate just exactly. If you've been excited about our business, just wait until you see what the future rollouts will be, because that's I think what is going to drive us to that next kind of phase of our growth as well. So I can't wait to see if you're going to be joining, whether virtually or in person. Just know that it'll be valuable time spent, and it will probably have the most ROI that any event or education that you've really received from any of us at the company. So I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Well, you can tell by the comments, everybody else is excited too. You guys, who is already planning to attend SRC, drop in person or virtual in the comments. Let us know. I am so excited for this event. And like you said, there's so many things to be excited about. But today, we're going to focus in on one true love of this company that we all love. And I know that you have had your hands in the process, in the formulation, and it's truly changed the lives of so many. And I think it's worth shedding some light on, if that's okay. Let's hear a little bit about the background of Biocell, the most famous collagen in the world, often imitated, never duplicated. My friends, who in here takes the collagen? Hands up in the comments. Asma, would love to hear from you a bit about Biocell and about the science, because it's obviously, won awards for a reason. Give us a little bit of history on how Biocell came about.
Yes, and so a lot of people don't. I mean, maybe I can remind you a little bit of my background. So, and it was interesting because just over the last week, I was in San Diego at a sports and active nutrition kind of a summit, and that's where I get my inspiration, often on the supply side of the industry, because that's where I was raised, and that's what I've been doing as my lifelong career. My passion really roots in the product science, product development, formulating. And then I have this other equally important side, which is, of business and of growth and leadership and everything else. But I feel like a company's value really comes from the, how much value they can create for consumers. And that has to come from product, And so even the tools that we launch when it comes to social retail next gen are all going to be coming back to this one concept, which is to be able to give your customers more access, more reasons to continue to buy, more retention. And then the other half of the equation here is that the products really work. And that's why people continue to take them. That's why the number one retention product that we have happens to be Liquid Biocell for our whole company worldwide. And when we look at teams who are duplicating on retention, that is the highest of all of our markets. It's usually teams that are focused on duplicating on that Liquid Biocell concept. And the reason why is, and I'll go back to my history here, I started off in manufacturing, contract manufacturing, and that means that I developed products for other companies. They would come to me and say, here's what we're looking for. Can you give us this or give us that? And in that experience, I've actually developed thousands of formulations at this point, always behind the scenes for other companies. And in doing that, I would come up with different concepts or ingredients, and came upon this discovery of this collagen ingredient. And back then, this is 20 plus years ago, when I was only 5, just kidding, but when back then, no one knew anything about collagen or even hyaluronic acid. If you look back today, you see commercials on TV, even big companies that are like very everyday, consumer products are using words like hyaluronic acid. They're using collagen even more because of its popularity. And we're talking about both topical and ingestible. Back then, there were no ingestible collagen products on the market. No one really knew what it was. No one knew what it did. No one believed in it. The medical community really, looked the other way when it came to collagen ingestible products, because scientifically, if you think about this, these molecules that, comprise collagen and hyaluronic acid are just giant molecules relatively. They weigh in the millions of daltons, which is how we measure the weight of a molecule. And what that means is that if you were to ingest it, it would just go right through your system and it wouldn't actually take or be effective. And so the beauty behind, what we did back then was really say, this is different though. This is not like everything else. And the reason why is the first challenge was getting it to a molecular weight, basically a size of a peptide that would actually end up reaching your tissues and be absorbed by the bloodstream and not be destroyed like most proteins and amino acids and other generic collagen products might be destroyed in the GI tract. But doing human clinical product trials on this, we found that it had efficacy in great profound ways when it came to joint health. We found that it was synthesizing collagen, increasing collagen content in the skin and in the joints as well, because it showed to be able to reduce joint discomfort on all different measurements, when it comes to activity levels, mobility. We're talking about even quality of life, all the different ways that you measure those kinds of things. So fast forward a little bit too, the other part of this that was really, I think, the most profound aspect of this is that our body works very interestingly, right? So you probably have heard of this concept of, your body recognizes something. And when for example, in our skin and in our cartilage and in our connective tissue, when you look at collagen, it actually coexists with hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate. This active ingredient that we use, called liquid Biocell. This is the one that we have 7 patents on, and was really the one that kind of spearheaded and started the whole collagen movement. It happened to be that this one was the composition. If you looked at it under a microscope, it had just as much collagen to HA to chondroitin sulfate as our own human body's cartilage did. And there was nothing else like that. There still isn't anything like that on the market. And that's why we believe our body really recognizes it and absorbs it and utilizes it. And we have proof of that based on multiple human clinical trials that are randomized and double blind and placebo controlled. And they all come back to one thing, which is ultimately the most important thing you need to know is that when you're taking care of your body, over all these years, you're degrading collagen and HA, and it's causing for weakness in our connective tissue, it's in our skin dermis, in our hair, skin, nails, and all we're doing is replenishing healthy levels of these miraculous, kind of molecules that actually help us to contain and, maintain the strength of our tissues. And so that is the whole entire objective. If you look at any beauty, procedure, all they're trying to do is synthesize collagen. If people get, even when it comes to joint health, we've seen injections that they inject in between joints when people have really severe degraded joint cartilage in between their joints. All they're trying to do is really replace the HA that's lost, between their joints. So if we have an ingestible product that's actually doing that from the inside out, then we can live healthier lives, throughout, for as we're aging, we can actually replenish that level of HA and collagen that we're losing.
That is so powerful. And, you drummed up some memories of my previous life. I used to work in an advanced wound healing. And it just so happens my skin substitute was over 90% collagen based. So it makes you want, there's something to this, my friends. But there's a lot of options out there, right? And when you were talking about the molecular composition and on the note of bioavailability, I would say most of the collagens that people will see out there are, in a powdered form, in a canister. Is there what are the big comparisons or big differences between a liquid collagen and a powdered one that might be, on the shelf at Walmart or Target or something?
That's a great question. So when you see powdered collagen products out there, you'll often notice that they come in big tubs, right? And the reason why is because the studies done on hydrolyzed collagen, and it's not just any collagen, but it has to be hydrolyzed, are don't show efficacy unless they have more than 10 or 20 grams in their daily servings. What that means, so think about 20 grams. You're literally talking about, if you use protein powder in a shake or in smoothies, that's a big scoop, and if you were to take that much and put it into capsules or anything like that, you'd have so many capsules that nobody would want to take it. That's why they're always coming in those big tubs, because you have to have so many grams of that product in order for it to show the minimal efficacy. That's why ours is very different. And that's why it gets very confusing, because people think, oh, it's collagen. Well, how could it be effective? It only has 1 or 2 grams or this many grams. They're comparing apples to oranges. Remember, our clinical trials have been done on our product, our ingredient, not on theirs, on ours. So they shouldn't be borrowing our science to prove anything about what theirs is doing. And ours is so very different that the studies that we've done have been shown efficacious at the dosage that we provide. And the great thing is because we have like this microdose that is required for efficacy, we can actually pack it into this liquid, form application. And that is one, just in generally speaking, liquids have a much higher dosage compliance. So one of the issues with people is that they tend to not take pills and tablets. It's just people get fatigued, from taking those things. So if you have something that's very easy to take, very it's good tasting as well, then people comply with it. They don't mind taking it. They can take, some people take it straight out of the bottle out in their fridge, and take a couple of tablespoons a day. And that's all you need, and so that's one of the reasons why. The other is bioavailability. So liquids are absorbed. GI tract our digestion actually starts in our mouths, not in our stomachs. And so you can actually start to absorb, the components of this product right from, ingestion at the mouth. And the most highly concentrated amount of capillaries in our entire body happens to be right underneath the tongue. So oops, that's my little automatic light switch. I have to move in my office. We're very efficient here, but when even when it comes to the medication that's life-saving, sometimes you're going to find them being sublingual, and these are even like pharmaceutical medications. And the reason why is because the fastest way to get medications in someone is actually underneath the tongue, because of the amount of capillaries there and how the absorption works. So even if even injections won't even get, to the tissues as soon as it happens when you're ingesting something in the mouth in some way. So it's for many reasons, liquid is a powerful delivery system, and that's why we use it.
I love that. That's a common question guys, hands up in the comments if you've always wondered, is there really a difference between these? And, let's take it one step further if we could, because now that we're starting to see collagens, pop up in different places, in efforts to create some differentiation, what can we touch on in regards to bioavailability between different sources like bovine or marine derived, or a combination versus chicken or something like that? Does the source really matter as much?
It absolutely does, for the reasons that we talked about. So the different sources will not have, there's no inherent HA in these other sources. So the bovine collagen doesn't have inherent, hyaluronic acid. They might be adding it from another source to, again, try to replicate what we have, but it doesn't even compare because it's actually not naturally occurring. So none of those sources have inherent hyaluronic acid. And then also, depending on what source it is, there's different dosage requirements. So for example, bovine, 20 grams a day is what, generally speaking. The other thing is that, ours comes from chicken sternal. So whereas many of the other, sources come from often it's carcasses, skin of animals, of fish, and things like that that get kind of boiled down to be able to extract, this collagen source. It's almost like gelatin, So think about cooking, and how you have to just cook for a long time in order for you to be able to get that gelatinous nature of those like bones, right? That gelatin is actually collagen, right? So when you're eating collagen or things like that, you're going to be it's very similar to that process. Even gelatin powders that you might be able to get from that you use in Jello and things like that, that can be a collagen source as well. But that doesn't mean that it's actually going to synthesize collagen in your body once you ingest it. So depending on the source, it could provide a different type of collagen. In our case, the only place that we extract our ingredient from is from the smallest few centimeters of a sternal cartilage that comes from chickens. And it's a byproduct. So we don't actually kill any chickens or anything like that for our product. And the small little portion, I mean, literally, I can't even show it to you because it's so minuscule, the amount that we use. And the reason why we only use that little tiny tip of the sternal cartilage is because that's the only place that exists. No other cartilage from the chicken skeleton or the bones or anything has the composition that we're talking about, which is that it contains, collagen type 2, HA, chondroitin sulfate. That little tip is actually the reason why it's so effective is because that little tiny piece, and we imagine we have to have a lot of it, in order for us to produce this on scale. But we do, because that little tip is not only scarce, but it's actually the only source that's worthy for us to create the efficacy that we know it creates. And so and not only that, but I think it's actually much healthier too, because that piece of cartilage actually does not touch the nutrition of the animal either, because it actually receives no blood supply. So whereas a lot of these other products are taking, many different parts of an animal, cooking it down to be able to extract the collagen from it, this is a very different process. And that's why I'm always, I think it's great that the market has kind of proliferated with so much popularity, which is wonderful, and I think that, we certainly will, we have been recognized, for kind of starting this movement, but the only other side to it is that we really have to make sure we're very clear with people that this it's not just collagen. They might have a different understanding of what collagen is today, and that this is a very, very different substance than, like you said, the things that they might find at Walmart in a big tub.
Hey, can I throw in a question that I've heard that you are in fact a vegetarian or a vegan, correct?
I have been, yes.
Now, for somebody that when you touched on that specific area of the chicken cartilage, it's not actually coming in contact with the blood of an animal. Do you think that's why, some vegans and vegetarians are comfortable utilizing our product?
Yeah, it all depends. So it's a very deeply personal kind of commitment to being vegan or vegetarian. So first of all, vegetarians tend not to have an issue with it because it actually doesn't. If they have no issues with dairy or eggs or anything like that, this is again a byproduct, and it has nothing to do with the flesh or anything like that of an animal. And when you're a vegan, you take it to an extra level too. But some people are vegan because of environmental reasons, other reasons. The good thing to know, whether it's an environmental purpose, is that we're not actually. This is a byproduct, so this is actually a substance that is actually going to waste, and so we're actually utilizing it for a different purpose. The other thing is that. Again, people have to make their own decision on this because it cannot categorically be defined as a vegan or a vegetarian product. But I know the most prominent like raw food leaders and pioneers who are not only are vegan, but they only eat raw foods, but they'll make an exception for this because of the benefits outweigh the concerns that they would have. Remember, this is not going to comprise a large number of grams of protein per day. Remember, those are the other products out there that would. Remember, 20 grams a day is what you have to take. And so this is, again, very, very small amount of the active ingredient. So it doesn't comprise a large portion or percentage of anyone's diet that would come from animal protein. So that's the other reason why we find that vegans and vegetarians find this to be acceptable, but that's a deeply personal decision, and they have to make that for themselves. But certainly, we have many people who understand its benefits and do take the product.
I love it. I love that. I love that it can serve people that have those deep personal beliefs. And what you've just shared is something that I think those types of people would find valuable if they were to hear this down the road. Actually, I had 2 questions for you, but I know that our time is going to be limited. So maybe you could talk a little bit about dosing for us. How is there any benefit to doubling up on doses, which is the 1 tablespoon 2 times a day? If somebody's taking both Biocell and Trim, how do they maximize their outcome utilizing both?
Yeah, great question. So good news is that liquid Biocell, you can take more of it and it would create, with one exception I'll tell you about in just a moment, but the toxicology studies on the active ingredient have shown that it's very, very, very safe. And remember, we've been selling billions and billions of doses of this every year for, a long, long time, decades. And we don't see adverse effects or anything like that. People do tend to get a better result when they do take more. So sometimes people will start off taking more and then they'll taper down. And the reason why we've seen this in studies, actually, which is that, for example, dose-dependent studies showed that the more that was ingested, the more hyaluronidase was inhibited. That means that it's actually taking, it was a linear relationship, actually. So the more that they were taking, the more efficacy it had. So sure, it's totally fine to double up on doses. I take more than the recommended dosage and have for years. It's totally fine. But you don't have to, because the studies have been done on the recommended dosage. Now, I will say that with Liquid Biocell Sport, remember that one is the formulation that contains branched chain amino acids. And so you don't need more than like the daily dose of that. So if you're going to take additional, what I usually do is I'll take my Liquid Biocell Sport at the recommended dosage, and then I'll add, like an extra dose of Liquid Biocell Life, or Pure or something else. Similarly with Trim, we really have designed that to be just a 1 tablespoon a day, but it only has about the half of the daily recommended dosage, the clinical strength of what you would need for the actual Biocell ingredient. So that's why if you take Trim, you want to take a full tablespoon of Trim, as your Trim dose, but then you want to supplement it with like Liquid Biocell Pure or Life or something else. And that'll give you a full daily dosage if you take 1 dose of each, or what I do is I take the regular amount of Liquid Biocell and then just add Trim, because it gives me an extra dosage of the active ingredient of Liquid Biocell. So it's actually just extra benefit there. And I see the comment here about immune too. That's another one too. So it has zinc in it. It has elderberry extract too. So those are the only ones that you want to make sure that you're, complying with the daily dose, and just to make sure that you don't get too much of the zinc and elderberry extract, as well. But other than that, it's very, very safe, to take more of, if anyone wants to as well.
Well, provided knowing that we've got it in our amazing coffee and our skincare, like we're getting a little more Biocell than we probably should, but how great to know that it's perfectly safe and it's okay for us to do that.
Yes.
You guys, are you finding this helpful? Drop in the comments like what your favorite part is so far. And Asma, as we're closing out, I want to thank you again for your time and pouring into us. I have to ask you, like, just off the cuff, how does it feel to be literally the pioneer that so many other formulators out there are trying to figure out how you've done what you've done? How does it feel to be behind literally the leading collagen on planet Earth?
Well, that's very humbling. So I will tell you that it's only because I've worked with an incredible team throughout my whole life that would make any of these things possible. And so I would say that it's very, very, very much surreal in some ways too, just what an impact. And when I look back at like even casting a vision and having belief in what we could potentially do, we keep coming back and just exceeding all those goals. And so it's absolutely incredible. And I just want to thank you so much for your belief and confidence and understanding. I feel like people who take liquid biocell and are with Modere are pioneers themselves because they understand that they're highly educated. They want to take the right product. They want to make the most value, create the most value for the consumers that they're selling to. They want to also do something very different when it comes to our model, and be spearheading the change that we really need to see. So I feel like we have the best people in the world, and that's because Jen, as well, lead the charge when it comes to influence. So I can't thank you enough. Can't thank all of you enough. So appreciate you so much.
Oh, this was such a treat. And by far, I know, guys, what you have just experienced is exactly why we have made the list of 100 most loved workplaces. Asma, it's a pleasure to be able to do this with you. And I know I speak on behalf of all of MLife. Thank you so much for what you do. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for this.
Thank you all. Thank you, MLife team. Go. See you guys in a couple weeks.
Yay! Bye-bye, everyone.